I would like her to do too in addition to this. So she's gonna introduce this real briefly.
One tag.
I asked today. There.
I have one.
Donated a bunch of my kids' school for like auction, and so we sat on it and watched it and got it for like half price. We were like, okay.
They're great. Yeah.
Hey.
Excited.
I'm sensing the nervousness. Leon is your last name. Can you remind me of your first name?
Eileen,
Eileen, okay.
like the song, if that helps anyone else.
It's a great song. You want to sing it? Jason probably can.
That song?
Come on, Eileen.
Come on, Eileen.
Oh.
That'll be in my head all night.
Hey, that might help me from saying the wrong name. And crying with Boots Mom and Kayla. We're excited for you too. Don't take that.
We have an item for this beginning.
During the pre-meeting? Okay. We can do that after Kathy does her little intro. So. Thank you for letting me know. Cheryl, are we making anyone else? Oh.
We have,
We're missing Hasten and Murray. And Jen.
we will have four.
We do have four, so I was just wondering if.
I'm gonna hear, Maurice
Yeah,
will
got that.
maybe here at 4:30.
Okay,
We'll get through the applications, we got a few people,
If I didn't hear from Jason or Jim.
okay,
some building experience,
Repeated requests, so I don't know.
so we can get some diversity.
Sorry.
I know you're way over there. You come join us over here. I don't know. Murray's gonna be late and we don't know about the other two. So you're welcome to come over here, but I'll help you hear better. Yeah, we do.
Chair, chair. We just have a chair. First to the eighth, better. Mario's. Central Pippin, very good.
That clock is actually two.
It is, that's what I just realized.
It's 2 weeks.
Yeah. Can we fix the
what we're
clocks? That's something we could ask. Why are the clocks always this one slow and that one slow?
Never
Yeah, cause it's been consistently a little late, so.
Again, it falls under Ryan's job site.
Ryan, can we fix the clocks in the building?
Unfortunately, clocks are bad, why they were talking down slower times, but we can adjust it.
I could have on the nurse, I'll come to either, so work around those so. We'll just go.
Yeah. It's 32.
Yeah, it's 3:32, so we need to.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, look at him fix it.
I mean, it's spring, every Saturday.
That's service.
I think it's hardware, so you know, it's not.
Yes.
33 before months.
Yeah.
Three.
3304, 5, 6,
Chairs.
7.
chairs, stuff covered.
Yeah.
There you go. Ah, perfect.
I was vice chair last year, I never got one invite. I didn't even know it was supposed to come.
Yeah, that's.
Alright.
So those guys did something. I told you at the meeting.
Is it straight?
Yeah, actually, it's pretty good.
Told the next one.
Okay.
That, I'm afraid if you move it, it will.
Did it hold the time?
That's too fast. That's too much.
It'll slow down.
It's like a minute
I don't
fast,
manage
it's
my
fine.
calendar really well, I forget.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call our meeting to order, our pre-meeting to order at, we're gonna go by that clock, which says it's 3:34. And we are in the council study room, which I could never remember the name of, probably never will. But we will begin. Eileen, do you wanna start?
So first, we're gonna have Kathy give a brief overview of the tour that's happening in June for the Orem Center Business Park. And then we'll review PV zones, and before that, Jason has a
Jason.
as well.
So. I wasn't sure if you had anything before.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to share with you just a brief overview. So Jim Sheldon, the managing director for Newmark Real Estate Services, reached out to me and he said they're rebranding the space that was formerly known as the Blendtec building, and Blendtec is still there. And as Ryan explained, I reached out to Jim Sheldon, and he said that right now their business partner has a portfolio of go-to spaces that Blendtec can go to, and I am assuming that that will happen as this space is leased out. And so you might want to be thinking the tour is scheduled next month for June 19th. Of questions that you have, he's going to provide a more updated, like 2-page handout with kind of an overview of the division of space. There are all the buildings. There's 2 floors at the space, and it's right now divided up into 3 different buildings of over 2 floors. And so there's a lot of options for them to lease out the office space and kind of the manufacturing space. But just looking, you can see where it's located in Southwest Orem. There are some great pictures that they've provided just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And I was looking through the pages that they provided, and it looks like the area that's available for lease right now is primarily in building 2, and it's mainly on the 2nd floor, and building 3, the 1st and 2nd floor. And so it looks like they have about 100,000 square feet for lease right now. That's open, and so it'll be interesting to see what businesses choose to go in there, and it'll be sad to see Blendtec go because they've done a great business, but like Ryan said, they've just struggled and had financial difficulties, and so they're downsizing, and that's the need for that downsize. So, and if you have any questions, I'm sure Jim will be happy to answer those at the tour next month.
So we're just gonna meet out there. Time, right? So we're not gonna carpool here, we're just gonna meet out there and everybody can drive back. Okay.
At 3:30.
Will we be meeting at the Blender building, that entrance?
Yes, yes.
Are you guys familiar with that?
No, big one.
Their entrance on the east side of the building looks like a giant Blendtec window. So
Oh,
I'll help you
yes.
find the doors to go in.
Okay,
And
and that's at 3:30.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
3:15.
Oh, 3:50.
Oh, thank you for correcting.
Clarifying that. We wanted to make sure that you had plenty of time for the tour and be back in time for meetings.
Thank you very much for setting that up for us. 3:15, yeah. Okay, Jason?
So October, I know it's a ways away, but those of you who are interested in going to the APA Utah Planning Conference, it's in Provo, so not too far away. Thursday and Friday, October 10th and 11th. As a city, we'd be glad to pay your fee if you're interested in going. What we'd like to do is pay for it before our fiscal year ends. So if you guys are interested, let me know by probably next month. So nominal fees, less than $100. So if you're interested in going, we can get us a group rate. Then you can all go and spend both days, one day, just depending on what you guys want to do. There's a lot of interesting information.
Will they give us an agenda?
Yes, about probably a month or two before, I'll send out an agenda, we'll make sure you guys have that. There typically is a planning commission track, some other thing, public planner or citizen planner track. Again, it gives you some information from maybe those perspective that you're not a professional. But it gives you some insight on how to, run a meeting, things like that. Not necessarily run a meeting, things that go along in the planning field, so it is a good opportunity.
It's really good. I've done it the last 2 years. It is well worth the time. And just to understand what's going on, both locally and regionally with it.
Yeah.
And also for planning perspective, and yes, usually the planning commission track is really good.
I'm interested.
So they have
I am.
lunch provided both days, there's typically snacks and drinks and things that are a part of it. So at least 3 of you, are you interested?
Are you interested in going to the APA conference again? In October, the 10th and 11th, and it will be in Provo this time. You'd like to go?
Yep,
Okay, so,
at least 4 of us.
and then we'll wait, I'll check the other 3, we'll get you guys registered. Awesome.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna have a discussion on PDs and PRDs. This is something I meant to bring up when we were talking about things a few weeks ago, but it's one of those topics that come up occasionally for us, and I think we need to understand what the differences is, what our city policies on each of those are right now. And have better understanding, cause like, I didn't even know you could extend a PD until we had that one come before us a few weeks ago, or last month, so.
Okay, perfect. So, and this we're gonna kind of cover all of what you just said. So plan development within the PD zone is a zone that provides more flexibility in the city's zoning scheme. So like, for example, we'll read this later, but Wingo is an example of a PD zone and all of the, like the villas and the apartments behind it. It's intended for use primarily where no existing zoning classification allows for that type of that combination of structures to go in. But it also protects the character and the quality of the neighboring properties or the surrounding areas as well. This is a current map of the Orem PD zones. Everything that's highlighted in blue is a PD zone. So you can see there's the 2 big ones. We have Wingo over here. The Orem Temple is also considered a PD zone. So that's another one, just quite a few examples. These are the requirements. Lot has to be, in order to qualify to be a PD zone, has to be at least 3 acres combined. The parking for buildings with less than 10,000 square feet of the gross floor area has a 1 stall requirement for every 250 square feet. Buildings with the 10,000 square feet gross floor area or anything bigger has a requirement of 1 stall for every 250 square feet of the gross leasable area. But if that's not known, 1 stall is required for every 250 square feet of the gross. Do you have questions, Alan?
Well, yeah, just trying to parse out the difference between if it's less than, it's 250 square feet, but if it's over 10,000 square feet, then it's still 250 square feet of the leasable area. What would be an example of?
Typically, what happens is in a larger building, you'll have elevators, shafts, stairwells, common bathrooms, those type of things. In a smaller building, you typically don't, typically a 1 tenant. So we don't exclude those. In a larger building, because there's so many common areas, we allow them to exclude those and just do the leasable areas and pay these. That's why there's the difference. So if it's a larger building, we're assuming there's gonna be multiple tenants, which is why then the common corridor areas will be excluded.
With the PD zone though, the height setbacks, number of parking stalls, number of units are all proposed by the applicant in their concept plan. And then they're negotiated with the staff, planning commission, and are ultimately approved or denied by the city council.
So just on that one, there's 50 plus PD zones in the city. There's probably 50 different parking standards, height standard, maybe that's a little exaggeration, but there's definitely multiple types of PDs with different parking standards, different heights, different setbacks, different things. So the intent of PD is more of a negotiation if the original intent is if it's, we don't have a zone that would allow for that type of use, or we want to limit it like the storage units, we wanted to make sure that was the only location to build. So that's the intent of a PD zone, but then the different setbacks and things are negotiated depending on if there's a slope or there's a unique situation and it's not surrounded by residential properties and things, then maybe a different setback, different parking standard, things are negotiated. So all of them are, go through the process for rezone, planning commission will make its recommendation. And it goes to the city council ultimately to approve a PD. So it's not, the staff does not obviously approve a PD, it goes through the process, the council's ultimately approving.
Put you on the spot for a second. What's the Orem temple? Because they have got so much more parking than they do square footage.
Yeah, so that,
Do you happen to know? I'm just curious.
I don't know the number, I could tell you what I looked up, but it was a negotiation because the temple is so large that there was a lot of different appointments throughout the day. They
Right.
don't technically meet that standard,
Oh, they don't meet that standard?
no.
Oh, okay.
And so they're sharing what the stake center right next door, and so collectively it all, there's oodles of parking, right?
Right.
But not everybody goes and stays all day, so it's a cycle through, so the council was comfortable with that, but it's very close. But because it was, a 70,000 square foot building, we didn't really want to make them park that when not everybody, it's not full of people all the time.
Right.
And then the height is, it's 170 feet tall, which is unique with the spire going up. So that was another exception that's built in. So
Thank you.
Effective July 1st, there is no more, or no new applications are being accepted for the creation of PD zones that allow for residential units on any current residentially zoned lots. So for example, OS5, R20, R12, and the ones listed, they're no longer accepting, we're no longer accepting applications. And then effective February 5th, 2014, no new applications will be accepted for the creation of a PD zone that allows both, or allows residential units within 500 feet of Sage Street, 800 North, Center Street, or University Park.
Are these Orem ordinances? They're not
Yes.
state?
These are Orem.
Okay.
So, which is why you've seen a couple different PDs. The one at the mouth of the canyon was 500 feet south of 8 North, which is why they were able to come in. And it wasn't zoned residential at the time, it was a commercial zone. The PD zone that we just approved with indoor storage, that was a commercial zone, so that was an exception. And that was an expansion of an existing PD that was already in place. So, so we still do PDs, but we don't do anything that has anything to do currently with any residential component. Unless it's not a residential zone, and it's not within 500 feet of any of those major streets.
So is that why when Sherwood Haven came before us, they were asking for highway services instead of PD? Because
Correct.
that's, got it, okay, thank you,
Yeah, we told them up front that you can't ask for a PD.
got it.
Yep.
So here's a first example of a current PD. PD 22 is a zone designed to be applied only to the area that's outlined. So it's between 800 North State Street and approximately 1050 North Street. And between 900 West and 1200 West Street. This particular one is, this is Wingo, if you look at it from above, and then the surrounding, we have apartments over here and then the villas in the surrounding area, along with the businesses that are located southeast corner. It's designed to maximize office, commercial, and residential uses within a mixed-use setting, and it's also intended to reduce how much people might have to drive within their community so they can work and shop closer to home.
So if I could just explain, one advantage of having the council and the planning commission staff review this is, this one, I don't know if you got a chance to look at it in ordinances, but there's a lot of unique pages that are part of the appendix that limits where they can put the residential, maximizes the commercial. There was a limit or the minimum retail that had to be a part of that zone as well. So the councils who went through that whole thing basically put parameters on the developer and says, hey, if you want to do this, 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 and this, then we'll approve this PD. So you can see all the residential is above and all the ones below. There's no residential over there, but it is retail. is tax producing, those types of things. So these PDs are the ability for the city to say, yeah, we like what you're doing, but let's give us some safeguard. So they built into those standards that we make sure that it was built the way that the city envisioned it. So
And I'm assuming this was approved before 2014 because it's within 500 feet of the zone.
just a backstory, Hyundai wanted to, I think it was Hyundai, wanted to go on the entire thing. The council thought they could, well, not they thought it would be better not to just have the entire thing in partnership, to have mixed up uses, so they actually denied that one. This was approved, and I think Winco was proven to be.
That's because Hyundai was on State Street and they moved to Linden, so.
Yeah.
You know,
Another thing you can do is the materials, this zone will have a certain type of roof. Like when Maverick wanted to come in and remodel with their stagnant cement, they could put their tiles, because of cabin.
So you see the color schemes, these are very similar with the yellows, and which is why all of those are either have rock, stone, those colors that are similar, so tied it together. So there is a big advantage, at least in my opinion, of doing a PD, because it does allow council to negotiate with the applicant. Typically, they want to do what they want to do, and so by doing small things around it, they're fine doing it because it doesn't really cost them extra money typically to do that. So anyway.
Here is another example of the PD. This is the Orem Temple, it's the PD 50. And this, for this particular PD, the property is uniquely suited only for churches, synagogue, and temples, and for nothing else. So no residential, no commercial. So moving on to planned residential developments, a PRD is aimed to allow higher densities than what is normally allowed, so more than a single family home, for example. It would include single family dwellings, twin homes, condominiums, townhouses, and apartments, as well as zero lot line developments. And the purpose is to allow densities higher than a typical residential development. But it's also establishing standards for the landscaping, buildings, the site design, other things like public safety, the parking requirements, aesthetics and so forth. It is required that it has required standards that the PRDs fit into the surrounding neighborhoods, so they don't stick out like a square thumb.
Could you go back for a second? Could you define what zero lot line developments are?
So you could have like twin home, where they have a
Oh,
common,
there's common.
or there are single family homes that are pretty close.
Okay.
Okay. So right now, and we'll get to, there's a minimum of 8 feet of separation. If you go out to the golf course, which they have some PDs out there, they'll be on the lot line on one side and have an 8-foot setback on the property, and then it repeats itself. So the 8-foot gap is on one property line, but the actual home is sitting on the other property line. Right? So it kind of, so there's still a minimum, but you can build on it in that instance. Typically, a twin home or whatever has a common party wall, and that's meeting by.
Would that include townhomes?
Yes.
Here's a map of the current PRDs in Orem, everything is highlighted in blue. So the PRD has more requirements and isn't as flexible as the PD zone. The minimum area for PRD is 1.5 contiguous acres. There is a requirement of a minimum of 2 parking spaces for each dwelling, and one has to be covered. And then there is the requirement of a minimum of a half a parking space for unit guest parking, or sorry, per unit for guest parking. And that has to be located within 150 feet of the units. The height requirements, they are structured, or the structures are limited to 1 story above grade. So it can either be the main floor, and they can have a second level, or and the structure can only have that second story if it doesn't have a basement. So they can either have a basement or a second story, they can't have both. And the area of the second story, if they choose to go that route, has has to have a headroom of 5 or more feet, and that's considered livable, not it would be considered like an attic or storage. And it's limited to 75% of the first story floor area. And no part of the structure can exceed more than 30 feet, which is the maximum height. Does anyone have questions with that?
I guess my question is just like, when were these created and what was the intent of limiting the heights of the structures that can go in?
Typically, because they're allowing higher densities, council at the time felt that because you're doing more units, they didn't literally want to have large structures that would overtake the neighborhood, so to speak. So instead of having 35-foot structures towering with 6 units per acre versus 3.5 units per acre of a single family, they wanted to have either a full basement, which really doesn't impede the neighborhood, 1 story, or if it was a 2nd story. About 5 years ago, it used to be 60%. We had an applicant petition to do 75%. The council at the time felt comfortable because it allows some space on the 2nd level, but it doesn't allow the full. So it really does limit to what their design intent is. It's not really designed for single family, multiple, large families, I guess is the intent. The intent is more of smaller families, retirees type of thing. And then if you look at all the PDs that are going on, our PRDs, in the city, the majority of those are typically empty nesters that live in the neighborhood and just moving over to this PRD, selling their home, downsizing a little bit. And they don't need as much space. The idea was not to develop a zone that would allow large homes, more cars and all that kind of stuff. So it was really designed for the intent of not smaller occupants, but less number of occupants per.
I think you mean shorter occupants at 5 feet or more on the 2nd floor.
So we had the reason we put that in is we had somebody try to claim that by a false ceiling, they met that intent. Well, we know darn well as soon as they do it, they'll take that out and it'll be. So we made the sort of distinction that it had to be a solid wall. So the ceiling, if it came down, had to be built solid so that you can't just take it out in the future. So that be surprising. The reason why we're so specific there is because there was an intent to kind of bypass that, so we had to be more.
And I don't think the appetite of the council right now is, we don't like periods.
Yeah.
If it's zoned RA, it stays RA, that's our intent, so
Okay.
we're not fans right now.
Who would you?
And I don't know.
And where are they, I don't know if it's on your next slide, but where are they allowed? I mean, like, there's limitations on PDs.
So anywhere in residential zone, as long as you have an acre and a half and, you know, the concepts in that, but it is a rezone. So the council does have the full discretion to say no. There's no reason that, you know, if they don't like it, they don't like it. They don't have to give a justification on the reason why.
Right.
Because it's the legislative action. So, you know, Dave's point, if the council's, you know, changed, if you go back to the map, they are spread out throughout the city. We, you know, got plenty of PRDs that were built in the 70s, 80s, and now in the 2000s is when we created the actual PD zone itself. We used to allow PRDs within an R6 or 7 or 8. So you'll see Evergreen East over here by the park. Those are all just single family zones, but there's a PRD within it. We changed it so it'd be more specific and it'd have to go through the pre-zone process. And then it would be subjective to the council of whether or not they felt it fit in the area, whether it was, you know, appropriate and things like that. So they do have the ability to say no, but as you can see, we have had many years. It is an option.
There are density requirements. There can be a maximum of 7 dwelling units per gross acre. There are different requirements depending on where the zone is located. So for example, a PRD that's located north of Center Street and between I-15 and 1200 West can be developed at a maximum density of 16 units per gross acre. A PRD located between 1660 South and 1746 South between Sand Hill Road and I-15 can be developed at a maximum density of 16 units per gross acre.
So what was the reason there, Jason?
So do it the next slide. So there was an ability for them to do apartments between those because it was I-15 frontage, 12 glass. There was undeveloped properties and they found that, you know, 6-7 units per acre wasn't necessarily enough density to get I live right next to an I-15. So the Maple Leaf is one, Running Horse 2 is another down south. But about 5 years ago, we felt that we probably had enough of those. And because there was still some leftover commercial, we basically took them out, or took the option out. So whatever's built there is allowed to obviously remain. But there's some vacant properties that we felt would be more appropriate for I-15 frontage, retail type development, office type of uses. So the exception has been taken out, so we no longer allow those between I-15 and 12 West. But at the time it was put in, it was felt that that was kind of an appropriate use between I-15 and 12 West. That's since been taken out.
It is interesting, but that's where I live. Let me tell you, Sand Hill can't take any more cars. It is just so congested, especially trying to get onto University.
The university is definitely an issue.
So you said that it was great, it's Crazy Horse, what was that?
It's a flying horse.
Flying Horse or
Yeah.
they were the FHA.
Yep.
Affordable housing thing that was FHA finance, which was a good thing.
So that was the last one that we had to get out before we, but that was in the process of this. If I remember, unless that's a PD, I can't remember. There's so many projects in my mind, I don't.
How might be a PD?
Could be a PD. That was before we took out the option to do PD.
I think so.
And what Jason mentioned was effective April 22nd, 2015.
So one thing that you may all be familiar with and maybe not, but codes change over time. So you never know what might be allowed today, may or may not be allowed tomorrow. So if you look at our codes, there's so many different nuances and so many codes that used to allow this, we don't now. We have a lot of buildings under this code, but we don't allow it now. So there's a lot of legal non-conforming uses, a lot of legal uses that are in a different zone now. Standards have changed, so as you look at a city, especially Orem, I mean, things change all the time. So it's a very dynamic thing. So as far as zoning goes, Eileen's gonna know shortly. There's a lot of things you have to look up. There's a lot of things you need to remember because what used to be a standard may or may not be a standard now. So it's not just here's the code, because it changes every year. We and you guys know this, every year we modify many codes. People request to modify codes, and so they change over time. So
How much of that is dictated by the state versus the municipality?
I would say, at least in my experience, the majority of changes have been done by applicants that wanted to make a change or wanted to do a development. We've had some changes based on state code. We've had some changes based on city council saying, hey, let's change this because we don't want that anymore. But the majority of changes, at least in my time, is that applicants can begin to say, hey, I want to do this. We don't have a zone. Can we change it? So we've gone through a process.
The setback requirements for PRD, if a property has a buffered sidewalk, which is the park strip between the curb and the sidewalk. The required setbacks are 32 feet to the garage from the back of the curb and 29 feet to all other parts of the house as measured from the back of the curb. The side setbacks adjacent to separated sidewalk are required to be 24 feet from the back. If a property does not have a buffered sidewalk with that park strip, it's just a sidewalk. The required setback is 25 feet to all parts of the structure as measured from the back of the curb. There are some additional requirements, single-story units in a PRD built at higher density, like the 6 units per acre, have to be set back at least 20 feet from any other property not part of the PRD. And the setbacks from I-15 right of way and commercially zoned properties have to be at least 10 feet. And all primary structures within a PRD zone need to be set back at least 8 feet from all other primary structures. The purpose of a fence in a PRD zone is to separate them from residential neighborhoods. So if there's like apartment complexes and then single family homes, the purpose of that would be to separate the two. And the same goes for commercial and manufacturing uses. Developers are allowed to construct a fence with a minimum height of 6 feet on all perimeters of PRD. but no fence is required along street frontages. If they do wish to put a fence up along a street frontage, planning commission may approve the request upon a favorable recommendation from the city traffic engineer, to ensure that the fence doesn't interfere with traffic safety. And the perimeter of the fence is required to have a consistent design throughout the project and use the same construction materials for a whole fence, so it meshes and goes with the neighborhood as well. As of January 6, 2016, all streets in a PRD zone have to be public. All the streets that are shown on the Orem Transportation Master Plan have to be developed as public streets according to the size and the general location shown on the Orem City Master Street Plan. The planning commission does have the authority though to require streets in a PRD zone to connect with other public streets outside of the PRD, where a connection may be needed to ensure that there's good traffic flow throughout the area. A public street that is projected to have daily traffic of 800 or less has to have a minimum right of way width of at least 32 feet, and all other public streets have to have a right of way of at least 46 feet.
Is that consistent throughout the city too? Is that the same standard for streets going in?
Yeah, depends on the ADT, right? If it's a wider street, then the PRD that connects the two streets is gonna have to match that wider street.
And all public streets in a PRD have to be paved with either concrete or asphalt that line up with the city standards and specifications. And they also have to include a curb and gutter on both sides and shall be dedicated to the city.
So the city used to allow private streets, PRDs, at a little less width standard than typical required. What we found though was 10 years later, they wanted to give it to the city to maintain because they didn't want to maintain it. But it didn't meet the city standards. So this is the reason we 5+ years ago changed it to require them to meet the public standards, and we won't have to worry about a substandard street wanting to be. I think John probably gets calls regularly if they, hey, come maintain my street or take it over, and they're too narrow. It's just something we're not taking over. And so rather than continuing that headache, we just decided like.
Does that also become a fire safety hazard as well?
So it also helps with that as well.
For the landscaping requirements, all land in a PRD that does not have a building on it, so driveways, sidewalks, or anything like that, are designated as common areas and have to be permanently landscaped and maintained with the, in accordance with the good landscaping practice. There are all of the required setback areas adjacent to public or private streets have to be landscaped as well. And at least 40% of the net acreage of the area of the development, less public and private streets of the entire development also have to remain permanently landscaped. So that can be rocks, grass, trees. For sidewalk requirements, a buffered sidewalk needs to be constructed and maintained on both sides of a public street. And a buffered sidewalk will be public and will consist of a sidewalk that's at least 5 feet in width separated from the street by a landscaped planter strip, at least 8 feet in width. So that's the park strip that we don't have in there. The planning commission may waive the buffered sidewalk requirement if it finds that compliance with the requirement would be functionally or aesthetically inconsistent. The existing development located near or adjacent to the pier. Private drives are allowed with a certain set of conditions. So development of part of the PRD or public street is not practicable. The private street will not extend to or provide service to another property or parcel not included in the PRD unless there is no reasonable way to access the existing parcels indigenous to a public street. The private drive will not provide us access or travel between or otherwise connect with home or public streets unless the street or drive is designed to discourage through traffic. And the private drive is designed by qualified civil engineer and constructed to city standard and specifications. Private drives are only allowed if the conditions are met. So if it's designated on the final plat as a perpetual right of way and public utility easement, all of the access points from the public streets have private drive signs installed. The private drive has a minimum width of 24 feet and a maximum width of 36 feet and is paved with either concrete or asphalt. And no private drive or portion of a private drive that has only one exit or a dead end accesses or services more than 4 units. A private drive may be required to be wider than the minimum width necessary or required if it's necessary to ensure traffic and pedestrian safety or to reduce traffic congestion in the area. So here's an example of a current PD zone. This is a joint home development. It's Peach Haven down on Center Street. And there's the zoning map. And this is the street view and they're twin homes, so they share the wall. And here's another example. It's Penny Lane. It's also a twin home development on 800 East.
So you can see this is one example of a private street that we allowed prior to making that change. So this is actually a private street. Whereas you go back to that one, that is a public street. So as it connects into public streets. So there are plenty that have a public or private street, but we don't currently allow it.
And this is zoning map for Penny Lane. And here's an example of the twin homes that are in that PRD currently in the street view ring.
The only way they'd be able to build twin homes like this would be in a PRD.
Correct. Yep. So as you see, the difference between a PD and a PRD is the PRD pretty much has a set standard can of ordinances that are put in place. If you meet them, great. If you don't bother, right? Because the council is typically not going to change the standards within that unless it is an idea that the city council supports. But typically you got the height, setbacks, fencing, landscaping, all that's built in. If you go through the rezone process and you're planning compliance with all those ordinances, then you'll approve it. PD zone's a little bit different in that we do allow a little bit more negotiation. We have certain, site plan requirements, subdivision standards that we'll put in the PD zone. But then the other things like heights, setbacks, and all that can be negotiated. Whereas in the PRD, they're not. If you meet them, great. If you don't, then redesign your project to meet them. We're not going to take it forward without that. So there's a little bit of nuance between the two of them. PRD is more of, like I say, one that's already put in place. It's already gone through the development process. It's already the council, for the most part, is working on supporting of those, right? But the PD they may or may not be. So it just depends on what they're proposing.
And just for one more piece of clarification, you can do residential in a PD as long as it's not in a residential zone.
As long as it starts off in a commercial
Zone.
But that's ultimately up to the council to say.
Right.
Yep.
But those can still be utilized.
As long as it's not within 500 feet of the major.
There's a lovely PD zone near Gary and I, because we live in kind of the same area. It's Provo. You probably know where I'm talking about, but they've got private driveways that lead to 4 houses, but each house is really unique. It's beautifully well kept. They must have some sort of HOA there. It's like our favorite place to walk our dog. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's an HOA.
Yeah, but isn't it a beautiful PD?
Yeah, yeah.
It's really unique and it. I don't know.
And then they have the open common area
Yeah,
behind the homes in a linear fashion.
yeah.
It's just a matter of like Penny Lane, for example, it's a very nice development. very nice homes, not cheap, right? So I think things like this, I think that, I'm not gonna speak for council, but I think if you come in with a product like this, it's better than coming in with really small lots, trying to squeeze it out.
I think this is what you did on there, it's, you know, you have 2 acres, you wanna put 15 homes, no. Just do something better.
Yeah.
Keep it consistent with the neighborhoods, but
Well, then, I think that's what I was saying, you can have these PD zones that really are, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
You've done a good job.
until after the discussion of, well, what the applicant wants to propose, ultimately it is up to the process to say, you know, yes or no. Really, it's up to them to sell the product,
Yeah.
to come in with an idea that I'm just gonna cram as many as I want.
Yeah,
Then
but
the
you can
answer
be
is most likely
creative.
gonna be
Yeah.
no.
And it works.
And if they're nicely designed, nicely maintained.
yeah, you have 15 homes, that's no process, right? That's, to
Yeah.
me, it's greedy.
Exactly. Yeah, and it hurts neighborhoods.
Anyway, any more questions between those two? Is there any, you have any more?
And Penny Lane is it's a nice development, very nice.
Okay. I honestly sort of say we can't have accessory apartments in PRA.
So accessory apartments.
You could build all of the accessory apartments. Basically 20 families, where in PRD, they're not allowed. So you're a little bit tighter density, but no accessory apartments would be allowed.
Okay, that's good to know.
I think you did a great job, thank you.
Thank you very
That
much.
was really interesting.
Did you want
So,
your slides?
say what?
Do you want your slides?
Yeah, I do. I was going to ask for, if you could send those out to us, that would be nice for us to be able to have references.
I'll get those.
Yeah, thank you. So, any other? I just wanna ask, so we've got a couple extra minutes, what, we talked briefly a few weeks ago. I'm sorry, the last few months have been like the same month, so I keep saying a few weeks ago, and I mean like, it was a couple months ago. It was in March, we talked about some other things like this that we would like to do, this was one of them. Oh no, we want to talk about development agreements, actually, we could talk about that briefly, development agreements versus PD and how they differ. Is it just when in the process the decision's made, or maybe we need to have a further discussion about development agreements?
You can have a further discussion. Typically, development agreement goes along with the rezone. If there's something unique about the project, or they're proffering something that's unique, it's not like the Penny Lane where they've gone over and above what they've done, they wanna add some other things, and the council can help. They can't require it, but an applicant can proffer a development agreement that guarantees that they're gonna see fixed. That's what the development agreement, we have to have a rezone process for that to do. The city can't just certify it as a site plan, hey, give me a development agreement. That's my statement, we can't do. We have to go through either a rezone or a text amendment or something like that as part of the process for development. But it really allows the city to put in the applicant providing that, and then the city is not obligated, I'm speaking for Gary as an attorney, sorry. The city's not obligated to rezone the property, but the development agreement kind of helps give insurance for the council to do that.
Cause
In exchange for getting whatever's in development.
sorry, I know we've had a couple of incidences where people have started to say, like before, it's like, oh, we can do a development agreement if you're concerned about these things. And I guess some kind of understanding like, okay. Like, does city council like development agreements? Do we wanna force them into it? Like, not force them, not right, but like,
I'll let Gary take that question.
A development agreement is just another tool to ensure that the city gets what it's planning for in wants. So often you have several regulatory schemes. And I don't mean scheme in a bad sense, I always say that to somebody says, talking about zoning as a scheme. I mean, just kind of a set of rules or ordinances that control land use. And so you come in, the first one is the zone. And if the developer can do something within the requirements of the existing zone, then they should do that, because that's the best and easiest, it's kind of the lowest level. And so if a proposed rezone comes in and a project just goes with that and they meet all the requirements of, hey, we want it to be a residential, what, an RA zone. And they can meet all the standards great, then just rezone it R8, it's simple, it's easy, everybody can deal with it. But let's say you have a zone that somebody wants to do commercial. And we're okay with the general rules of the commercial zone, except there's maybe some height requirements and some uses that don't make sense in the particular area where a developer would want to go. A simple development agreement that limited height and uses would be a really good tool to use there. And then sometimes you have another good use of a development agreement might be where you have a really big project, lots of acreage, and it's going to take several years, like maybe 10 years to fully build this out. Well, the city wants predictability of what's going to happen, and the developer wants predictability of costs and approvals and things like that. So a development agreement's a very good way to govern the 10-year life of that project, of what gets built when and what can go where and fees that are paid and things like that. And then there may be a situation where a developer comes in and they want to do something and it's a commercial nature and we don't really have a zone that fits, but it's not a really big long-term project. Well, then coming in and writing a brand new zone, these PDs that we do, because each PD is nothing but an individual zone. They're very similar, but they are each individual zone. And so you create this new PD zone, you rezone the property, and then they go in there and just meet the standards of the zone. So that development agreement with kind of short-term limiting uses or long-term governing the life of a really big project to writing a special zone like a PD or a PRD. It's the same type of concept. You're creating a brand new zone for them. And they're just tools to ensure that the community gets what they thought they were getting when it was approved. And that was way longer than you needed to be.
No, that was helpful, so. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Natalie, I found this really interesting. I would love to do this with all our zoning. I'd like to understand more than just a simplified level of the zones.
So go through like our commercials, go through our
I would love it.
manufacturings, go through.
Yeah.
So next week, or next planning commission, we can, Emma's modifying a card that we had made a few years ago that goes through all the different zones, all the standards. So we can head out these cards and kind of go through and kind of talk about commercial zones, talk about residential zones, the different standards. We can
That'd be great.
walk you through that as well.
Be very useful.
So we can plan on that next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, any others you're interested in, let me know. Just so I know when we're planning the agenda and filling things in. We also have some, from the ones before, we have illegal rentals and parking. And then transportation, increased traffic, how to mitigate it, street parking problems, update biking and pedestrian plans, e-bike. So those are some of the things already on my list. If there are other things that you're interested in knowing more about and learning like we've been doing the last couple of weeks, please let me know so we can schedule those.
We are in
Really
the
helps.
process of amending, as we talked about last time, the time before, about neighborhood meetings and not holding it on the city council meeting and information. I mean, it's in Gary's office right now, so as soon as he gets it done, no, I'm just kidding. So maybe next time we'll have it ready and we can just at least initially talk about it, and then we'll we haven't made a formal application, we're just trying to come up with some standards. So we can bring that and review
Yeah.
this.
Let's look at that again.
As I told that one, Friday after our last meeting, I did receive the cards
Oh,
for the meeting the following Friday. So they did.
2 days late.
show up.
it's in the bottom of his foot, he just, oh, I gotta,
No, I went out to the mailbox and.
no, I mean, the postman.
Oh,
probably
yeah,
has it
yeah,
in
maybe,
his
yeah.
truck.
Maybe that's what it was, but they didn't show up that Friday. I just thought it was funny.
Okay, then we will adjourn and then reconvene for our regular meeting. Thank you. Does anyone want to say the invocation? You want to say the prayer?
Test.
And it might already be certain goals in the day, that I'm not sure. Yes.
Yeah, no worries, just letting you know so you know.
There's Murray.
I would start again, sit down. Okay. Then I have to excuse me. All right, we'll call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order at 4:30 on May 15th, 2024. We'll excuse Commissioners Jim Hawks and Haysam Sakar. And we will begin with an invocation by Jerry.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful this day for thy many blessings. We're grateful for all that thou hast given us. We're grateful for this city in which we live and enjoy life. We're grateful for our nation and pray that thou will guide and direct our leaders. We pray as we meet now to make decisions on recommendations on development of the city of Orem. We pray that thou will guide us, bless us with wisdom and insights beyond our own. And these favors and blessings we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Okay, we will begin with our first item, 3.1, which is administrative, a plat amendment vacating lot 15 and 16 of Mountain Grove Plat A and approving Mountain Grove Plat C located generally at 372 East, 1375 North in the R8 zone. Yeah. When you're ready, Eileen.
All right, so Mountain Grove Plat C, the applicant is requesting to combine two lots that she currently owns into one lot. The smaller of the two lots is currently not buildable, but does have the same tax ID as a larger lot. And the applicant does own both parcels currently, and she would like to have them combined into one lot by amending the existing plat. Backwards.
No.
One moment while we deal with some technical difficulties.
My apologies, they just got shifted there. So Mountain Grove Plat C is actually a different one. So the applicant is requesting to combine the two lots that he currently owns into one lot. He's proposing to build a garage on one lot and a house on the other. That is currently not permitted in the R8 zone unless there is it's not permitted to have an accessory structure on a lot that does not have a dwelling unit. By combining the two lots into one lot, the garage would be allowed because there is a dwelling unit on the lot. Here's the current plat and the proposed plat. And the street views. And staff recommends, staff recommends the Planning Commission vacate lots 15 and 16 of Mountain Grove Plat A and approve Mountain Grove Plat C located generally at 372 East, 1375 North in the R8 zone.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on this one? Okay, is the applicant, do you have, sorry.
I have a curious question.
I do too.
Does this just reduce their tax load if they make it into one? Does it change the rate or something?
In this instance, they want to put a garage and we wouldn't allow it on a separate lot because we don't allow an accessory structure standing alone by itself. So they had to combine the lots into two. The taxes are based on value of the property itself. So the county will probably reassess it, but it wouldn't be charged as two lots. It would be charged as just a larger residential lot.
Has this been done in other properties?
Oh, it's done all the time.
Okay,
Across the street.
Yeah.
okay.
We did this to the. That's right next to it. Yeah. Yeah, we combined the lots on the other side of the street, if I recall.
Yeah, this subdivision, for whatever reason, has combined several of the lots.
And this is a brand new subdivision, correct? Or
Correct.
Yeah.
Newer, yeah.
across
probably
from
year
Timothy
older.
High School. So.
Yeah.
It was, it came through about a year or two ago. Yeah. So, okay, sorry. Now I'll ask, is the applicant here and if they would like to come forward? Would you like to say anything or? Okay. No need to if you don't need to. So unless we have any questions for him, but I don't, this is pretty straightforward. So, okay. Would anyone like to move to motion on this?
Yeah, I move we vacate lots 15 and the Planning Commission vacate lots 15 and 16 of Mountain Grove Plat A and approve Mountain Grove Plat C located generally at 372 East, 1375 North in the R8 zone.
I second the motion.
Okay. So Murray first and Jerry seconds that we approve vacating the lot and creating the new one.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Okay. On to item 3.2, also administrative. It's a plan amendment, amending and extending lot 15 of Laval View Plat A, including a vacation of lot 15 of Laval View Plat A and approving Laval View Plat F, located generally at 88 North, 850 West in the R8 zone. Eileen?
Okay, the applicant is requesting to combine two lots into one. She does own both lots. And the smaller one of the two lots is not buildable, so nothing can be put on that lot. But it does have the same tax ID as the larger lot of the two. And would like to have them combined into one lot by amending the existing plat. So here is the current plat and the proposed plat and the street view of the property. Is there any questions?
Okay, so staff recommends that we approve this. Yeah, any questions?
Can you go back to the lot view? You go, yeah, right there. So was the second lot, that's been a standalone? Is that right?
Yes, it's been a kind of remnant that they've owned as well. It wasn't part of the original plat. So they've owned both pieces. This just fixes that. So it's all now, no question that they own the one lot.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I guess my question is how would that other lot have been approved in the first place?
Just remnants throughout the city. And other cities, there's remnants that remain throughout and they buy them, as if it's a lot of record or parcel of record, you're able to amass different properties. The corner lot was a subdivision lot. The other one was not. And so this just kind of sucks that into that. But there are remnants throughout the city that kind of are in a similar situation. They own it, but it's not really platted as such. And so this just kind of fixes that. So it's not common, but it's not necessarily uncommon either.
Okay. Is the applicant here and would they like to say anything? All right. Would you like to move to motion on this?
I recommend that planning commission amend and extend lot 15 of Laval View, plat A, including a vacation of lot 15 of Laval View, plat A, and approve Laval View, plat F, located generally at 88 North, 80 West in the R8 zone.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. So Mike moved and Helen is second that we approve amending this plat. Ready? Mike, I'm sorry, Murray?
Aye.
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 Okay. The motion is approved. Okay, then we'll move on to item 3.3, administrative as well. Plat amendment vacating lot 12 of Sunburst Plat B and approving Sunburst Plat E, located generally at 494 North, 1040 East in the R8 zone.
The applicant is requesting to amend the Sunburst Plat B in order to expand the size of the existing shed in his backyard. Currently, they do not meet the setbacks, and there is a 8-foot irrigation and public utility easement that prevents him from making the shed larger than the 200 square feet. The applicant has been able to get the public utility easement vacation letters from all 5 utility companies, but he has only been given permission to encroach from the irrigation company because the actual ditch itself is on a neighboring property and not his property. So expanding the shed would not interfere with the irrigation ditch itself. Here's the current plat and the proposed plat. And the street views. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the plat amendment for Sunburst Plat E located generally at 494 North, 1040 East in the R8 zone.
Okay, thank you. So essentially what we're doing here is just removing the easements from the plat, correct? Okay. So any questions for Jeff?
No, but thank you for that clarification. I was trying to figure out what we were doing here. Thank you.
Is the applicant here? Do you care to say anything? Okay, that's good. Any other questions, concerns from the Planning Commission? Okay, let's move to motion.
I'll motion. I recommend the Planning Commission approve the plat amendment, Sunburst Plat E, located generally at 494 North, 1040 East in the R8 zone.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Helena moved and Murray seconded that we approve vacating this lot and doing the plat amendment. Jerry?
Aye.
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 Okay. That passes and that is amended. We will move on to item 3.4, which is administrative. It's another plat amendment vacating lot 13 and 14 of the Apple Ridge Plat C and approving Apple Ridge Plat F located generally at 419 North Palisade Drive in the R12 zone.
All right, so the applicant is proposing to combine the two lots into one and have already submitted a building permit application to build an addition on the rear side of the property. So it'd be of the current, or the rear side of the existing property. They currently do not meet the setback requirements to have this addition built. And by combining these two lots, the applicant would be able to build the addition and will only receive one tax notice instead of two. Here's the current plot where you can see both plots. And this is the proposed plot. And these are the street views. And staff recommends the Planning Commission approve to vacate lots 13 and 14 of Apple Ridge Plat C and approve Apple Ridge Plat F located generally at 419 North Palisade Drive in the R12 zone.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Just curious, how big is the combined lot? Is it 3/4 of an acre or?
So the combined acreage would be 0.58.
Oh, okay.
Half an acre.
Any other questions? Okay, is the applicant here? Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I do have one question.
Can you come forward to the microphone so we can pick you up? Thank you.
So we just moved here from Nashville, Tennessee, and we've understood that the lot, or the house was on two lots, but we didn't realize that it was a scenario where it was actually officially two lots. So I noticed that there's a water meter on the second lot. Is there something that I need to do with that? Am I supposed to be getting two bills, or is this the right place to ask that question?
It's a good question for staff. Jason, Ryan?
We can follow up
Yeah.
with you after this meeting.
Okay.
I'm assuming there may not be a water meter on there. It's just maybe a can.
Oh, maybe stubbed in or something. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably stubbed, and not necessarily a meter.
Okay. All right. That's
Okay,
it.
thank you. Okay. Was there any questions for the applicant? I know. Okay, good. All right, then we will move to motion. Somebody'd like to make a motion?
I recommend the planning commission approve to vacate lots 13 and 14 of Apple Ridge Plat C and approve Apple Ridge Plat F located generally at 419 North Palisades Drive in the R12 zone.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Mike moved to approve and Helena seconded this. Oh, wow, I did that out of order. Approval of this plat amendment. Jerry?
Aye.
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 Hi.
Okay, the plat amendment is approved. Thank you very much. And we will move on to item 4.1, which is meeting minute review and approval for our May 1st, 2024 meeting. Any concerns, anything? Okay, and someone like to motion for approving the meeting minutes?
Yeah, I reviewed and approved the minutes from the May 1st, 2024 meeting.
Okay, second.
Second.
Okay, Helena moved it and Mike seconded approving our meeting minutes for the May 1st, 2024 meeting. Mike, Murray?
Aye.
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 Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Ryan, do you have anything for us?
Nothing this week, thank you.
Okay, all right. Then I vote we move to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Seconded. I'm moving that we adjourn.
Seconded.
Okay, Murray?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're adjourned at 4:48. Thank you.
Back at it.